Iowa opens up Big Ten play on the road at Happy Valley, taking on Penn State this week. We'll break down that game for you. We'll recap the action in this week's college football, and we'll do some picks as well as some NFL talk next on Incompetent Sports Talk. Hello and welcome to Incompetent Sports Talk. Once again, I'm your host, Kyle Hughes. I'm joined, as always, by my faithful companions, Justin Bucklin and Josh Bolander. How are you guys doing this week?
Fantastic.
Pretty good.
You guys ready to talk some college football?
Absolutely.
Like always.
Yeah, and we're ready. We're ready to get into it. Iowa's opening up Big Ten play. They had the bye week, of course, last week. They're going to take on Penn State on ABC, big afternoon game. Penn State 4-1, Iowa 3-1. Penn State's only loss to Alabama, who we all know is a powerhouse this year. So give us a little preview. What are some of your thoughts on this game, this matchup?
I think it's a battle of two teams trying to find their identity, and I think it'll be an interesting first game of Big Ten play. Penn State did not look good at all last weekend against Indiana, so I'm interested to see how they kind of bounce back. Obviously, Iowa's a big game for them, upset them the past few years, so it'll be an interesting game to watch.
Yeah, you mentioned their struggle against Indiana. They also struggled with Temple the week before. They haven't been playing great at all, but then again, Iowa hasn't been exactly up to our level that we thought they'd be. So I think it's interesting to see the secondary of Iowa. This is their third game playing together. We'll see how if they can finally get things shored up in that secondary.
Yeah, Iowa has an extra week to prepare for this game, and as we know, Kirk Ferentz very good against Penn State. Iowa's won the last 3 meetings between these two games, and this is the last time Iowa will travel to Happy Valley for a while. They play in Iowa City next year, and then they have a break until 2016. So an interesting matchup. Penn State does have the 5th ranked defense in the nation, so that's something definitely to look out for. But their top linebacker, Michael Mautai, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but he was on all the preseason All Big Ten award watch lists. He's been the leader on that defense. He tore his ACL against Eastern Michigan and is out for the remainder of the season, so that's a huge loss for them. They've been juggling quarterbacks who they should start. I think it probably should be Matt McGloin, but Rob Bolden's still getting a lot of opportunities for them, and I think Iowa can take advantage of that for sure. But I think it's a more interesting matchup than it has been in the years past because, like you said, this is an Iowa team that also needs to find its identity. Do you guys see Iowa keeping that aggressive play that they did against at the end of the Pittsburgh game and against Louisiana Monroe against Penn State?
I think they definitely need to. I think that Happy Valley will definitely be rocking afternoon game, like you said, on ABC. The fans will be absolutely crazy, and the best thing for a road team to do is come out and really punch the team in the mouth with a big play. I think if you let Vandenberg kind of open up the offense in the first quarter, you can dial it back in the second and third quarters and control the clock like Ferentz likes to do. And if need be, they can go back to that hurry up in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, the Penn State fans know that Iowa's had their numbers too, so that place will be rocking for sure. But another thing, you mentioned their linebacker is going to be out, which you might think we might run the ball more on them, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're still going to air it out and hopefully get up early and be able to grind it out.
So that brings me to my next point. Who are a couple players that you guys are looking for? Let's start with a player from Penn State that you're looking for.
I think Matt McGloin, I think he will get his opportunities. Rob Bolden has been a little too inconsistent this year. Not that Matt McGloin hasn't been inconsistent, but you look at McGloin's numbers against Eastern Michigan when he was able to air it out a little bit, get a little confidence under his belt. Obviously, against Indiana, they weren't the same team, and against Temple the week before, they weren't the same team. But for Penn State to win the game, they need to put points on the board, and I think McGloin gives them the best opportunity to.
Yeah, they got McGloin and Bolden, both quarterbacks. Bolden, the more athletic one, but I think Iowa can handle either one of them. I don't think either one of them is that great. So I think they'll turn to Silas Red, their running back, and try to run the ball against Iowa.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go with the senior wide receiver, Derek Moye, for the Nittany Lions, who is remarkably similar to Marvin McNutt. I know how high we are on Marvin McNutt this year, but check out some of these stats. Last season, Moye, McNutt both had 53 catches. Moye had 885 yards, McNutt had 861, and they both had 8 touchdown catches. This season, last 3 games, if you just compare those, Moye 19 catches, McNutt 19 catches, Moye 335 yards, McNutt 273, 3 touchdowns for Moye, 2 for McNutt. McNutt, a big target at 6'4", 215. Moye, 6'5", 210. These two, I'm interested to see who's going to come out as the better-looking receiver out of this matchup. I think when a big play needs to happen, especially a long yardage play, these are the guys that the quarterbacks are going to turn to. So those are the two players I'm watching. Who's an Iowa player that you guys are looking out for?
I'm looking at Micah Hyde. I think he's easily our most athletic player on defense. We're looking at an Iowa defense that isn't as stout as it's been in years past. It might need to rely more on big turnovers for momentum in the game, and I think Micah Hyde gives us the best opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I think Penn State's going to run the ball with Silas Red, and in order for Iowa to stop that, we have to have good linebacker play. So I look for James Morris to have a big game, lots of tackles.
Yeah, Morris took the lead for us in the tackles this past week. So we've kind of broken down how things are going to, who we're looking for. What do you guys think is going to happen? Give me your pick of who's going to win this game.
I think it's going to overtime. I think it's going to be a very, very close game. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think that we're going to try to air it out, but Ferentz will likely tone it down in the second and third quarter, try to grind it out with Coker on the road. I think that may force the game to go down to a last possession or overtime. I'm going to take Iowa just because they've had their number in the past, the same way Northwestern has had Iowa's number in the past, and I think that kind of gives them a big psychological advantage over the Nittany Lions.
I definitely don't think that this is a game for the fans. I think it's going to be kind of a boring game. It's going to be a slug-it-out, grinding game. I'll take Iowa. I think there's going to be some key plays, though, either big plays, mental miscues, or special teams, and I think Iowa wins this game, though.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about this matchup with Penn State than I have been in games in the past, mostly because it's only the second road game of the year for Iowa, and we saw how they responded in a game they probably should have won in their other road game, which also went to overtime against Iowa State. You know, that's a rivalry game, but Penn State, there's going to be over 100,000 fans there, and we have a lot of guys who haven't experienced starting a Big Ten game this year, let alone starting one on the road at Happy Valley. So I think it'll take a little while for Iowa to get settled down, but eventually, as they have often against Penn State, they're going to control the second half, take control of the game, and pull off their first Big Ten win of the season this weekend. So we told you what we think is going to happen with Iowa-Penn State this week, but now let's go to a recap of what happened last week in college football with our college football breakdown. And welcome to this week's college football breakdown. We're going to get in depth on college football. As you see, we have our power rankings and Heisman Watch back up. The power rankings a little bit changed this week, Justin. Show us what you've done.
You're right. There is some change amongst the top five. Number 5 still is Oklahoma State, no longer in a tie with Virginia Tech because they lost, sadly. Oklahoma State, the number 5. I like that duo of Whedon and Blackman, one of the best, if not the best, in the nation. Number 4 is going to remain the same. Boise State, they just continue to go about their business, win games. Kellen Moore, one of the best signal callers in college football, and they're going to stay right around that 4 spot. They don't have any more real big games. They got TCU, but that's not looking like a very big game anymore, a game they should roll. Number 3, I got Oklahoma falling from the top spot to number 3. Not because they were unimpressive, but because the top 2 teams are that impressive. I do have LSU at number 2. A lot of people have it at number 1. But that defense, you know, with Alabama's defense, I think they're very comparable. Top 2 defenses in the nation. What it comes down to me is the offense. Alabama's offense, I think, is better with Trent Richardson. I think LSU is going to get a little shady with Jordan Jefferson starting to play more. I'm not sure how that offense is going to work, so I have them at number 2.
Interesting. I see you finally came around to Oklahoma, not having quite the same body of work for those two. I like what you did. Let's see what Josh has with the Heisman Watch.
Well, Trent Richardson has bumped his way back up into the top 3 with a big win in the Swamp over the weekend. Ran all over the Gators for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. Had 29 carries. He's been putting Bama on his back. Number 2, I dropped Andrew Luck down. Russell Wilson moves to the top spot. Despite his amazing catching ability, Andrew Luck actually has less touchdowns, the same amount of interceptions, a worse quarterback rating, and a worse completion percentage than my number 1, Russell Wilson, who had a big weekend dismantling Nebraska, and I think he's worthy of the top spot.
Well, I can't complain too much with your Heisman rankings. As you recall from last week, I said if Russell Wilson in Wisconsin wins that, he better be on this list. You got him all the way up to the top spot. But I'm going to say he still should be at number 2 right now, and Andrew Luck has to be at number 1. I'm looking at the buzz around these guys. Russell Wilson is red hot right now, but Andrew Luck showed a lot of star power with that amazing one-handed grab That's some penmanship right there. Trent Richardson, very impressive for me. He became the focal point of that offense, no question about it. So he gets a check plus. It's all going to come down to whether or not Alabama beats LSU and can come out of the SEC and can be a national championship team. Because if they're not going to the national championship, a running back is not winning the Heisman this year. That is just a big fat fact. So Russell Wilson, still a fan favorite of mine, especially beating Iowa's new arch rival, Nebraska. And I think he is going to stick at that 2 spot with luck. They're going to be trading back and forth depending on who performs better for the next couple weeks. Oklahoma State moving up to 5. I like it. Of course, you can't keep Tech in there right now. These top 3 are rock solid in these 1, 2, 3 spot. I'm going to switch these two. You know, Alabama has that win in the Swamp and at Happy Valley. Those are 2 tough places to play. But LSU, like we mentioned before, has victories over Oregon, West Virginia, and Mississippi State, all away games. They were all ranked at the time, and that Oregon win looks more impressive every single week. Oklahoma has a lot to prove this week, so we're going to give them a iffy look right there. If they come out on top of Texas and totally dominate a Texas team that has looked good lately, they could contend with one of these top 2 spots. Boise State, like you said, they don't have anyone to go for the rest of the schedule. TCU isn't a great team. Oklahoma State, I'm not sure they're number 5. I would probably look elsewhere, maybe at Andrew Luck's Stanford team in that number 5 spot right now. Otherwise, I think it's a pretty solid list, and you can't take issue with any of the few impressive undefeated teams. So that's all for our college football breakdown. We're going to get into some more college football action right now.